Well, Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Jeremy in Minneapolis. A wrestling card for a WWE Sunday house show at the Hard Rock Edis Arena. Oh, wow, I didn't realize they were still using Edis there. Oh, very cool. The Hard Rock Edis Arena capacity.
I haven't heard of Edis. I've heard of Hard Rock, but not Edis.
Mark Edis, funny enough, he worked for Donald Trump. And when Trump was making all of his deals in Atlantic City, Mark Edis and another guy whose name I forget died in a helicopter crash. So in what was formerly the Taj Mahal, the arena where they would do boxing, MMA, I'm guessing wrestling here, that was the Mark Edis Arena. So after
That's
Trump,
in Minneapolis?
No, that's in Atlantic City.
Said it was in Minneapolis.
I said the email's from Minneapolis.
Oh, well, how does he know what's going on in Atlantic City?
Well, here's his question. Talking about this card, August 14th. Here's the card as announced. The Usos versus the New Day. Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch versus Ashley. Ashule. That's how they spelled it.
What?
Instead of Asuka, it says Ashley.
Okay.
And this is the one I like. In the main event, Cody Rhodes versus Seth Franklin
Franklin Rollins. That's his new name. That is his new name.
Some websites
Franklin Rollins.
Some websites are charging as much as $58 for bad tickets, ranging up to $858 for front row.
What?
That's what he says here. I don't know how true that is. I'm not calling him a liar or anything, but here are his questions. Have you ever seen a wrestling card or poster where there were very clearly spelling errors on the card? Have you ever had to deal with a local ring announcer that clearly didn't know who you were and severely botched your name? And 3, it says, why does Bruce Pritchard continue to book the same matches that we've already seen over and over? I don't know if you could blame Bruce for that.
Well, what else is he going to do? They got the same wrestlers we've seen over and over. Oh, my God. Well, first of all, I mean, Brian, as an old newsletter collector from the 70s and 80s, when the newsletters would reprint all the wrestling ads from the territories around the country, and as a collector of programs and newspaper clippings and things from back in time, it's always been hilarious to see some of the local paper, the Oshkosh Bee, try to spell all these fucking weird wrestlers' names, especially when you got into the Russians or the foreign menaces or whatever. But I mean, it's through time from the 30s till now. Remember the famous poster that Dennis Corluzzo did for one of the Eddie Gilbert Memorial,
the first one,
brawls, the first one. And one of the big stars, the big main events, was Jerry the King Lawler, and the poster people made him Jerry Thinking Lawler. He was, so I guess he had the fucking, brilliant genius gimmick. And there's some ridiculous misspellings and, because a lot of times, I know for a fact I've seen this done. In those days, there was no email and there was no texting. And, you couldn't just mail something to a newspaper if it was timely. So one of the jobs of the local promoters in every wrestling territory was to call the newspaper ad for that week's show into the newspaper. And Christine Jarrett used to do it for Louisville. And depending on Guy Coffey would call in the results for the Memphis paper, but depending on the intelligence level of the person at the newspaper answering the phone, and it could be a crapshoot, especially when you're calling the night desk, as they used to call it, to give wrestling results. But also depending on how easy it was to understand the person that was making the call, the promoter. What was that famous line, Jack Pfeffer? This week for you, I got a great new sensation, Babalinikoff. How do you spell that? B-A-B-B-O-B-A-B-A. Fuck it, don't book him. So you would get these weird, varieties of people's names. And As far as local ring announcers, yes, all the time. Even if sometimes they were the regulars, like we've made fun of Bruiser's ring announcer in the late 70s. Bob Beach, he couldn't pronounce anything. He had replaced a guy. Oh my God, when I first started watching, what was his name? Tom something. Dave Dynasty's going to know this. But he was real smooth and had a radio voice. And then this older guy wore these, flashy jackets. And I think his son was one of the referees. So he was probably a friend of Bruiser's or Snyder's or Mineker's, somebody in town in Indy. And he introduced Dominic DeNucci as D'Amica DeMunchie, and he couldn't read any of the towns. We had a guy in Smoky Mountain that introduced, I told you this, the gangstas were New Jack and Mustafa Said from South Central Louisiana, because he didn't know L.A. was the abbreviation for Los Angeles.
Who was the ring announcer for that clash? I want to say it was early 1989, the one who the Russian assassins had a match, and he had the card in front of him, and obviously he didn't know what he was reading, and he said, here is, from Kilos, Russia, with a combined weight of 160 pounds, the Russian assassins.
Yeah. Because they were supposed to give their weight in kilos, and I don't know what the fuck. I'm trying to think, where was that? God damn it. I don't know. Every once in a while, you would be stuck with a local announcer and you got what you got, even though if you tried to go over it with them, right? And sometimes you wouldn't know to go over the pronunciation of the word cat with this particular fellow. And then you'd be surprised afterwards.
Well, Jim, if you're someone writing the wrong names of wrestlers down on cards, maybe you're the problem. Maybe you need some help. Maybe you're having some issues. Maybe you need to work through them and talk to someone. Maybe you can call someone right now.
Oh, for heaven's sake, now don't persecute and belittle our aspiring fantasy bookers out there. At least they're not going to be like Tony Khan and actually put it on television. But Tony Khan, Brian, is exhibiting already some of the signs of burnout, because he's not just fantasy booking. He's doing it in reality for a lot of things, a lot of places, and he's got a lot of other responsibilities. You can get burned out. And if you out there have ever felt burnt out, whether you're working too much, not taking enough time for yourself, burnout and life itself can be overwhelming. You can be burned out without even knowing it. Symptoms can be lack of motivation, irritability, fatigue, all the things that I experience on a daily basis. But while we associate burnout with work, that's not the only cause. Any of our roles in life can lead us to feel burnt out, and BetterHelp wants to remind you to prioritize yourself, and talking with someone can help you figure out what's causing the stress in your life. So that's the idea. BetterHelp is customized online therapy. They offer video, phone sessions, even live chat with your therapist. So you don't have to see anybody on camera if you don't want to. You definitely don't have to go out in public. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy. You can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours, and our listeners here on the program get 10% off their first month's services just for trying it out if you go to betterhelp.com/JCE. That's betterhelp.com/JCE. BetterHelp, HELP. 10% off your first month's services. Give them a try and see if that can lead you to, instead of being burnt out, being lit on fire once again and ready to go, full of piss and vinegar. Well, I guess you really wouldn't want to be full of piss and vinegar. Why is that a saying that they used to say, that people would want to aspire to be that way, full of piss and vinegar?
I don't know.
Well, what good are you then if you don't know the answers to any of my questions?